everyone, and welcome to my little historical game show, Is It Irish or Is It American Traditional Music? I'm sure that everyone here is familiar with American folk music, but are you familiar with the origins? American folk music came to be in the 1800s. Many different cultures contributed to folk music, including Ireland, so today we're going to learn more about that. Traditional Irish folk music has been listened to by ages by the Irish people. It is defined as being composed of different material, cultures, and traditions. Also, the general themes for the music have changed throughout the centuries as well. Between the 1500s and the 1600s, many songs were composed with political poems of the troubles the Irish faced during the Elizabethan era, and the many battles that occurred during and after that time period. Some famous battles with songs written about them are the Second Desmond Rebellion, the Battle of Aughrim, the Battle of Benburb, the Battle of the Boyne, and the 11 Years' War. In the 1700s, there were still lots of political songs about war and battle, along with solemn songs about the disadvantages of the Irish poor life. Ballads about rebelling against the British would also be sung, and these were considered rebel songs, and these would lift up the crushed spirits of many Irish men and women. The 1800s had a variety of themes in their folk music. After the Irish Rebellion of 1798, many songs were sung about the uprising that took place against the British. The Irish used music to express their emotions that occurred after the event. The rebellion was extremely important in Irish history as it proved that the Irish were not going to back down. As a result, the Act of the Union was passed in 1801. This united Great Britain and Ireland. Although this was good news for the Irish Parliament, this didn't mean that the general Irish were treated any better. Other folk songs of the 1800s consisted of patriotic ballads, but also the roughness of the famine that occurred from 1845 to 1849. Not only did the potato famine strike in the 1840s, this is also about the time when 4.5 million Irish men and women immigrated to America. In Ireland, families were starving and were forced to live in poor conditions. They did not have any money, and it was known that in America, cities were being built with plenty of job opportunities. However, the famine was not the only reason that the Irish came to America. They heard that America was the land of the free and that they were going to have religious, political, and economic freedom. When the Irish arrived, many didn't have any money. They would crowd together in tiny homes in the slums of the new cities, such as New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia. Eventually, there were more Irishmen in New York than there were in Dublin. Because the Irish were clumped together and lived in harsh conditions, disease would spread like wildfire among them. Americans were scared to go near them and feared that they would also catch a disease. They normally worked on railroads and coal mines and other low-paid, dangerous jobs. There was lots of prejudice against the Irish, and many jobs would not hire the Irish. It wasn't just their desperation, hard work that they brought over with them. It was also their music. In the late 1800s in Chicago, the Irish minority sought to connect with the Americans with their art and music. They introduced nationalist aspirations of America into their music. Chicago musicians also wanted to connect with the Irish and founded their own traditional music by using the same instrumental tune and procedures that was used in 17th century Ireland. Chicago loved the music that the Irish brought and incorporated it within their own. Eventually, American pipers would be in the streets and clubs playing the traditional melodies that the Irish people knew and loved. These pipers became such a hit in Chicago and began to spread to other cities as well. The melodies played by the pipers, along with all of the musical genius the Irish brought over, would play a role in contributing to what is now known as traditional American folk music. Common instruments in American folk music are the banjo, fiddle, and the violin. The common instruments in Irish traditional music are the fiddle, tin whistle, flute, uilleann pipes, and the accordion. And although these are different instruments, the way that they are orchestrated into a tune is quite similar. Now for the game, I will be showing our contestant 2 clips at a time. And you guessed it, one will be a snippet of a traditional or folk Irish song, and the other will be a folk American song. There will be 3 categories, easy, medium, and hard, and 3 rounds per category. If our guest contestant, Luke, wins, he will win $10,000 and a free trip to Ireland. Let's get started. Restart. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Also, if our guest contestant Luke wins, he will win $10,000 and a free trip to Ireland. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and thank you for coming to my first segment of Is It Irish or Is It American Traditional Music? My name's Hallie Gillespie and I'm your host, and this is our guest contestant Luke Davis.
Hello.
So, do you know how this works?
No.
Okay, so basically there's going to be 3 rounds, round 1, round 2, and round 3, and each round is going to get significantly a little bit harder, and I'm going to show you 2 clips 3 times per round. One of the clips is going to be a segment from Irish traditional music, and the other one is going to be American traditional music, and you are going to have to decide if it's Irish or American. And I think that's really going to tell us how much Irish music had an influence on American folk traditional music after the Irish immigrated here in the 1800s. Okay, so shall we get started? Okay, so let's start off with round 1. This is your first song. Okay, so now for the second song.
I think the first song was Irish and the second song was American.
That is correct. The first song was Follow Me Up to Carlow from the 1580s, and that is an Irish song. It was originally written about Fiach Mac Aod O'Brien, Lord of Ramallag, while during the Second Desmond Rebellion that occurred from 1579 to 1583, fighting against Queen Elizabeth I of England. The second song, which was an American traditional song, is Gospel Plow. Actually, it's recent, from 2008. Okay, so good job. You got 1 point.
Woo.
Oh, and I also forgot to add that if he wins, he gets $10,000 and a free trip to Ireland. Now for the second section. This is your second song.
Again, I'm going to say that the first one was Irish and then the second one was American.
Yes, that is correct. The first song, which was an Irish song, is The Boys of Fairhill from the 1800s, and it is a well-known upbeat Cork song. The second song, which is American, is Ain't Gonna Work, and that is actually from 2015. So good job, you're on a roll. And now for the last part of round 1. Here's your first song. Now for the second song.
Okay, Hallie, this time I'm going to switch it up. And I'm going to say that the first song was American and then the second song was Irish.
That is correct. You got everything right from round 1. So yes, the first song that I played for you was an American song, and that was Doc Boggs, which was made in 1927. And the Irish song was The Rising of the Moon, which is from the 1860s. And that is a positive song regarding the Irish Rebellion that occurred in 1798. And its purpose was to try and lift up the spirits of the Irish men and women. Okay, so now we're going to get ready for round 2. But first, what were your thoughts about round 1?
I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was kind of hard because I don't really know a lot about Irish or traditional music, but I could tell that there's some key distinctions between the two.
Okay, great. So we'll be back with round 2. All right, now it's time for round 2, which is going to be a little bit harder. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so let's start it off. Here is your first song. Now time for the second song.
I'm going to say that the first one was American and then the second one was Irish.
That is correct. You got it right. So yes, the first song I played for you was an American song, and that is Sugar Hill from 1999. And the Irish song was played second, and that is Clare's Dragoons from the 1700s. That is about one of the Irish brigades in the French army during the 9 Years' War. All right, now for the second section. Here is your first song. Here is your second song.
That one's hard. I'm gonna say that the first one was Irish, and then the second one was American.
That is correct. The first song was The Dawning of the Day from the 1800s, and that is a beautiful traditional song from the 19th century, also known as Fine Gael and Lay. Then the second song I showed you was American. It is The Arkansas Traveler from 1847. So now on to the last part of round 2. Here's your first song. Here's the second song.
I'm gonna say the first song was Irish, and the second song was American.
That is correct. I gave it away for round 2.
Round 2, I kind of just noticed more instruments that the Irish use. They use more instruments than American Classic, but they still have similar instruments, so it's still kind of hard.
All right, great. And I also would like to add that, yes, the first song was Erin Go Bragh from 1920, and that is an Irish rebel song about loyalty to Ireland. And although it never brings up the Easter Uprising, there's a lot of speculation that it is basically about that day that happened in 1916. And the second song I showed you was the Ballad of John Henry from the 1920s. So we'll be right back with round 3. Hi guys, and welcome back to our last round, which is going to be the hardest round of the show. So let's get right into it. Here is your first song. Okay, so now time for the second song.
This one's hard because usually Irish music has accordion in it, but the second one sounded more Irish than the first one. So I'm going to say the first one was Irish and the second one was American.
That is incorrect. Actually, the first song is American and the second song is Irish. The first song I played for you was Young Edmund in the Lowlands Low from the 1800s, and the first song I showed you guys was Oro se do Beath Abale from the 1800s as well. And that is a 20th century rebel song meaning cheer and welcome home, and its tune has many origins. Now time for the second song. All right, now time for song number 2.
I'm going to say the first song was Irish and then the second song was American.
That is correct. Good job. The song I showed you was The Irish Rover from the early 1900s, and this is a very popular folk song about a great sailing ship that reaches its demise as it sinks after a 7-year trip, and the only survivor is the narrator of the song. And the second song I showed you was American traditional song Lazy John from the 1940s. So now we're going to go into the last round of round 3. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, that was the first song. Now time for the second one.
This one's hard. They both sound so similar. I'm going to say that the first one was Irish and the second one was American.
That is actually incorrect. And it's very interesting because, so basically, the first song I showed you was American. It was The Streets of Laredo from 1924. And the Irish song was the second song I showed you, and that was The Bard of Armagh from the mid-1800s. And that is a traditional rebel ballad whose tunes remains popular in some songs of the 20th century, including The Streets of Laredo. That song actually derives from The Bard of Armagh, which is very interesting and probably why they sound so similar. And that is just one example of many of how much the Irish really did influence American music when they came over to America. So, what did you think about that last round?
I thought it was really hard. They were very similar, and I thought that because there was a piano, it would be more American.
So thank you so much for coming, and guess what? You still win $10,000 and a trip to Ireland because you got most of them right. So that is very amazing. So thank you guys for coming.